I'll be back.
And you will know my name is the Lord. I'm walking here. I'm walking here.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Groovy.
Welcome to Box Office Pulp, everyone. We've got a very special mini-bop for you today, which will hopefully actually be mini, considering there's only 3 of us instead of the entire 4-person normal crew.
It probably won't, because it's us.
Right, it might be longer than normal. Anyways, I'll be your host, Cody. Joining me today, MB.
Yes.
And Mike.
I'm here too.
That's it. We're here today to discuss Zack Snyder's newest film. Yeah.
It's on film.
Yeah, it's
on film.
Theoretically is, everything that meets the requirements for a movie. But, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. Yes, that's the actual title. And, boy, we should have known we were in trouble when that happened. But I digress. I'm going to dial things back a little bit. I came prepared for once for an episode. This is a warning to everyone at home that they can tune out for like the next 5 minutes because there will be like 0 dick jokes. I actually prepared like a little thing about how I felt leaving the movie theater because this film had a big impact on me, which I wasn't expecting. I thought Superman would punch Batman, Batman would punch Superman, and, they'd shake hands and I'd leave the theater going, that was fun. And no, I actually left the movie theater literally angry, not just indifferent or bummed out, but mad. And I think the last time I felt that way after watching a movie in theaters was at a midnight screening of Revenge of the Sith. Sith. It wasn't just that the movie was bad, and honestly it was. There was something else going on, and it took me a few days to really put together in my head what had crossed me about it. What about the movie itself had pissed me off. And, I mean, I've seen plenty of terrible films. Films that insult the audience's intelligence, films that are half-assed, films that are technically flawed, films that are poorly constructed, films that are oblivious to their own transgressions, films with all those problems and more. And they don't really bother me that much, at least not as much as Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. And there was something special about how wrong this film was that it had to strike a chord in me. So normally when I watch a movie, my usual mode is to look for positives. There's always something positive about a movie if you look deep enough. And almost every aspect of film is subjective, so I try to remind myself that a movie I loathe is someone else's absolute favorite movie. So, one they might turn to when they're feeling down or alone or whatever else they need just to feel good. So, you gotta cut some slack. No film's 100% perfect, but it doesn't get me anywhere to remain just stuck on its flaws. So when I talk about how much I hate Batman v Superman, you have to trust that I have a greater purpose here than just venting, although that's obviously going to be a factor. And there will be a lot of pointless bitching. I make no qualms about that. You're going to get a lot of it. I apologize. So after stewing on the movie for a few days, I saw an article from Devin Faraci titled Superman and the Damage Done. It serves as a eulogy of sorts, reflecting on the type of character Superman used to be, and how that character has become more or less corrupted by filmmakers and ridiculed by audiences. To quote part of the article, I don't want to get into the question of what Superman would or wouldn't do. Those esoteric arguments go in circles, with people drawing on random and highly unusual moments from previous comics or from eras in Superman's history when he wasn't fully formed as a character. What I want to get into is the simple fact that for the last 80 years, Superman has been an image of hope and inspiration, a character who represents the best of us. For generations after generations of kids, the first intro to that character is often through then-current media portrayals of him. Comics these days are incredibly kid-unfriendly, and most kids do not want to watch old stuff. They want to see the current thing. For generations, there have been depictions of Superman that get the basic qualities, truth, justice, the American way, an idealized version of it at least. Decency, kindness, happiness, love, all those correct. Whether you think Superman Returns is any good, or whether you think the animated Superman show or Justice League Unlimited is the best ever, they all contain depictions of the character as someone a young person can look at as a model for action. What would Superman do? Be a good guy. Be polite. Be kind. Every time. Every time until 2016. End quote. And that really opened my eyes. I'll freely admit I've been on the wrong side of the character for years. I complained when Superman didn't throw a single punch in Superman Returns. I stood by Man of Steel when it came out. If you listen to our early mini-bop between MB and I'm sure it gets funnier every year. You can hear me say very many positive things about that film. But I've come to realize I've fundamentally misunderstood the character just as a lot of other people have over the last few years. I've made the same mistakes other people have when they think of Superman, just as the boring blue Boy Scout. We used to love and respect the Christopher Reeves version of Superman, but at some point, we just became cynical over it. We don't want the hero who is collected, emotionally stable, inherently good. We don't want an example that's there to aspire to. We want broken men, anti-heroes who have greater internal struggles than our own. We want heroes we can sympathize with, maybe even look down on and pass judgment over. But when I go to a superhero film, I think I really crave a hero to admire, someone who, if I'm feeling lost or confused or depressed, I can look to for some kind of inspiration, as cheesy as that sounds. Just do what Superman is doing, trust his instincts, trust his intentions. Seeing a Superman who bounced around without agency, unsure of his moral footing at all junctions, and prone to basically the weakest human urges, bummed me out. Superman is supposed to be a paragon of humanity. He's the immigrant who embraced our culture to such a degree that he became the representation of its highest ideals. He's the force of grace we can all turn to and believe in when nothing else seems correct. Not so much in Snyder's movie. The director basically actively sabotaged this image and fed into the false idea that Superman is a boring character who needs some extra spice to be palatable. Possibly the best way to sum up my issue comes from an issue of Superman. Superman 156, The Last Days of Superman. It's an older issue dating back to the 1960s, and you've probably seen pictures of it online and kind of laughed over them, but there's a very striking image in the comic of Superman thinking he's dying in his final moments, using his heat vision to etch a goodbye message to humanity into the moon itself. And it's a silly idea. You'd never really be able to do that in a 2010 comic book hero movie. But behind that kind of corny idea is a touching intention. And I'll just read the panel out because it's a podcast, and well, you don't have a photographic memory of old Superman comics. With desperation, dying strength, Superman launches himself into space to write a farewell message to the whole world. We see the moon with these words burned into it. Do good to others, and every man can be a Superman. Signed, Superman, Clark Kent. If you can get past the idea of Superman vandalizing the moon with his eyes, you can really delve into how powerful and simple a message the writers are trying to communicate. Superman believes that he doesn't exist to be judge, jury, or executioner. He's there to be an example. He truly believes that anyone, or everyone, is capable of being their best and rivaling all the good he has performed over his life. Every man can be a Superman. And that's the hero I want to see again. I want a Superman who makes men believe that they can fly, who can make a fuck-up, believe they can turn things around on a dime if they allow themselves to. I want a Superman who is also the world's greatest hero, but not because of his inherent powers, but because he never fails to act with selfless integrity. Zack Snyder doesn't believe the Superman would be accepted by audiences, and honestly, I kind of have to worry he's right.
I'd like to kind of tag up on that for a minute, if that's okay.
No, the episode is actually done now.
No!
No, go ahead, of course.
I just want to talk about my actual theater experience watching this movie, and why I walked away feeling so strange over the film. Because it's one thing to see a bad comic book movie, a movie that doesn't understand the characters or anything like that. I mean, there's been bad Batman and Superman movies before. That's not really a new idea. But sitting in the theater, a group of children came in and kind of sat down in the aisle beside me. You know, they were fine, but they were very, very excited to see Superman and Batman. They vocalized that. I mean, these were young kids anywhere. There were a couple, at least 4 or 5. They were probably between the ages of 4 to 8. The youngest kept...
Obviously too young for Superman.
Obviously. And the youngest kept, saying Ooperman and things like that. And, really just wanted to see Batman and all this. And the film starts. And I found myself not so much watching the film through my own eyes anymore. I kept listening in to what was going on with this group of children. As I experienced the film through them, I watched them grow scared and things that are obviously, kind of scary, like Batman's dream sequence where the giant bat monster comes out for seemingly no particular reason. And, that's a little understandable, and that's very scary. When I began to see the children get terrified of Batman himself, and not in the way where, Batman's supposed to be a little bit scary sometimes, but it's window dressing. You're eventually supposed to be inspired in some way by Batman. Not quite the same way as Superman, but it rounds out to be about the same. And I saw them become terrified and not wanting Batman to be on screen. And then as far as Superman goes, they grew confused about his actions and seemingly not understanding why he just wasn't being what their child minds saw Superman as what Superman represented to them. They came in to see Batman and Superman save the day, and they didn't get that. They got this other entity that went against those ideals and seemed to put forward these ideals that weren't, as just a folly of quite frankly, a badly made film, written, directed, edited, everything. What it exactly is going for is not particularly clear, but I watched them leave the theater after the movie ended and saw their faces sullen and just sort of defeated. And I never really experienced seeing a small child be so kind of broken in some internal way over something as seemingly silly as a comic book movie. But it's because to them those characters are more. And to see a movie that's not inspiring, Ant-Man is more inspiring somehow. X-Men 1 is more inspiring somehow. Batman and Robin is more inspiring somehow. And they walked away. You almost get the sense that they'll never look at Batman or Superman with any sort of hope to aspire to be anything like those characters. They'll lesson learned from those characters, and they'll probably never look at those characters again. And I found myself angry, not because I watched a bad movie, but at everything that this movie philosophically represents and how it just bums me the fuck out that what it represents even exists right now. And kind of also made me look at adults who want to co-opt the idea of superheroes from children, that superheroes exist for children. There's many stories that are just for adults, and that's for adult fans. There's a Killing Joke animated film adaptation that's coming out here in a few months. That's obviously not for children, but that's not the main piece of media that's being put forward.
Yeah, that's just direct-to-video.
Yeah. And philosophically, there's an R-rated cut of this film coming out that just shows how not for children this is. And it's a bunch of adults justifying the fact they're making a superhero movie, essentially, and taking everything that they're supposed to represent and trying to make it a cynical adult thing that I fucking hate with a passion. Because these movies should be able to give something that will sit with a child forever. And instead, I watched a bunch of children be terrified of Batman and Superman and get really upset when Superman attempted to kill Batman. Like, I heard them get audibly upset and ask why this is happening.
To be fair, I was doing the same thing.
As was I. And that killed me so much more than just watching a bad movie.
MB actually loved it. This is his favorite movie of the year.
Don't even joke about that.
That would be
Kill me like Superman.
That would be fucking hilarious if we both went on that rant and then he just demolished us.
No, listen here. This is why you're wrong. And he lays down a track that makes us believe in Superman again.
But I watched the movie, and something you kind of have to understand about me going in is that more than anything else, these characters and what they represent have stayed with me ever since I was a child, ever since I was 4 years old, watching Batman the Animated Series. Because of that, things like first times in film became important to me because it was a marking in time that I felt was distinctive and a statement on the characters at large. When Spider-Man's first film appearance was in that Sam Raimi movie, I love the fact that that's what happened to introduce Spider-Man to the larger populace that didn't read the comics or grow up with the cartoons. It was an experience beyond myself. And what this film did was basically say, the culmination of the DC universe. The first time you saw The Flash in a major motion picture, you saw Aquaman, you saw Wonder Woman finally make her long-awaited debut in a movie. And more importantly than anything, you saw Batman and Superman interacting for the first time, these legendary icons. And all I watched was two mischaracterizations go at each other from a veil of complete cynicism. Seeing that torn asunder is more damaging in something like this than it could be in anything. And it wasn't me being a petty fanboy who says, oh, they didn't get the color of Aquaman's costume right. It was me looking at these characters and saying, I don't recognize these people. I don't get what the point of any of this was.
It's all been the long con. There's been no DC cinematic universe. They just made this one movie specifically to target MB.
If that were the reason, I would accept it, because I would throw my hat off like, well done. That is a trolling of epic magnitude.
It's just like the Justice League Unlimited. They're all gathered together like, gentlemen, we're gathered here today to kill MB. And then someone stabs a knife into a table.
God, Zack Snyder is just like Mr. White. Like, I just shoot him in the leg. It's like, the name's MB.
You're a Detective Comics number 27 floating in the wind, Mr. MB.
I still want to imagine Christoph Waltz is involved in this.
He is.
Where does Zack Snyder look? He looks in the barn. He looks under the hay. But he doesn't know where a real fan would look. Because he doesn't think like a squirrel. Because Christoph Waltz smokes that giant pipe.
As always.
I really want to buy one of those, by the way, but they're also several $100s.
It is a fancy pipe, though. Why do I imagine he still introduces himself as Blofeld?
No, it's really cool, guys. Trust me. No, man, it wasn't. Sorry.
Okay, so
Sorry, we kind of cut you off, MD. I'm sure you had.
No. That's really all I had to say about my actual feelings on the movie. Because what you actually came up for this episode, and you came up with this. I'm going to give you all the credit in the world for this. What we're doing for this isn't actually going to be a complain session. It's not going to be one of those episodes where you just hear nonstop, this is our opinion on this element, this is our opinion on this element, this is why this is terrible, this is why this was terrible. We can do that all night.
And we could. That's not hyperbole.
Cody actually made kind of a challenge, if you will, for me to guide the rest of this episode towards something a little bit more positive. Not out of a sense of vitriol towards the film, but just in terms of presenting factual basis for a lot of the stuff that is in the movie. Stuff that the filmmakers did not intend at all. I truly, wholeheartedly do not think any of them intended any of this. But I pulled from every resource I possibly could. The comic books, the other movies, the animated ventures, everything I could. I went into every possible DC catalog I could. I went to every Wikipedia page I could. I went on memory for half of this because I pulled just stuff left and right from years of being a fan of this stuff. And put together a lot of notes to kind of go with each scene of the movie, or as many scenes as I could.
Too bad we're out of time.
Damn.
Part 2.
I do love how our idea for the Batman v Superman Dawn of Sandwich episode is, okay, we're not going to talk about the movie.
If we talk about the movie, it's just going to devolve into me saying things like, why didn't Superman try to save anyone at that explosion at the court in Congress? Which doesn't really have an answer. I mean, or I could complain about all sorts of weird things, like why Superman tries to murder Batman when he doesn't want to murder him. And we don't need to go 2 hours into that discussion. It's not going to get anyone anywhere. All these flaws have been covered before, and it's just kind of a whirlpool of, man, that sucked. And that reminded me it sucked.
Why does this movie have absolutely no structure to it?
Why is it edited like a spastic kid on pixie sticks?
Why does it look like Aquaman is holding his breath underwater?
So you thought that was weird too, huh?
Yeah, that's really weird.
I laughed my ass off. Like, God damn it, Aquaman, you had one job. Breathe underwater.
Breathe underwater. Talk to fish, breathe underwater. That's pretty much all you got. So yeah, we would go for hours doing that, which honestly could be entertaining, but maybe just us. So I think maybe a little bit different direction, trying to compare what the DC comic universe currently is in comparison to what the source material is. Just kind of see what different directions they want to take it in, or what is more inspiration for this new universe, what we could expect to see more of in the future.
We're definitely going to be coming over a lot of what has made these characters what they are.
Murder. Murder made them.
Yeah, exactly.
Just murder.
All right.
Didn't murder make all of us?
Not me.
Made this country.
God bless America. God bless Iron Man.
God damn it, I was gonna say that. Like how,
Yes.
10 years later, it never stops.
I think it's honestly just out of Cody's basic need to everyday life be Sam Rockwell.
It's true. Cody is kind of our own
Only.
personal Sam Rockwell in
I think
Teenage
it's
Ninja Turtles, the movie.
Oh, I was gonna say, it's like the highest compliment I think I've ever been given, and then you had to do that to it.
Hey, he was fantastic in that movie.
I still haven't seen it, but
Well,
I judge.
I'm talking about the original 90s film.
Oh, okay. I assumed he was in the new one.
Not as far as I know.
Okay. Right, yeah, well, that kind of went past me, if he was.
Could be.
Sure.
I haven't
Yes.
seen it.
Tangent, right. Back to the comic stuff here. MB, take us
We
away.
will start this episode at any point. We swear to God.
We had a very good start, and then I meandered.
Box Office Pulp is made of meandering.
Guys, I have to warn you, I have a lot of notes, so let's
Hop to it.
get to it. Okay,
That's
the movie starts off with a recap of Batman's origin story, as we've said. The most interesting change here from the comics, actually, is something that I actually kind of found... I don't know how to explain it in terms of like what my actual reaction to it was, but it's fascinating because it's so contrary to what the comic books usually do, which is this movie actually gives a timestamp to Batman's origin story. What I mean by that is that if you look at the marquee that the Waynes are leaving as they leave the theater, they're leaving Excalibur, which is a 1981 John Borman movie, which means that if you take into account the idea that this movie takes place in 2016, and Batman says he's been operating as Batman for 20 years, and all of that, like, if you take it that the murders took place 35 years ago, Bruce Wayne actually has an age in this movie. He's 45.
Old fuck.
Now, that's 10 years, interestingly, below the 55-year age range in The Dark Knight Returns, which is the graphic novel that inspired a lot of this movie.
Or completely misunderstood most of it.
Oh, there's that too. But the most mainstream comic book depictions, Batman's given age is usually a stagnant 35. And more interestingly enough, The Dark Knight Returns was originally said to be written partly out of Frank Miller's realization that upon his 30th birthday, he himself would be older than Batman's given age by DC mandate at the time, which was 29 years old.
What a random number.
Yeah, right. No 30-year-olds in our comics.
It was the 80s. They didn't know what they were doing. But I just find that fascinating because it's like this unspoken rule in comicdom that you never have the time actually said aloud. You never actually have timelines established in the DC universe. This movie literally gives Batman an age for the first time.
And they even go to the effort of telling you this is, 18 months after the events of Man of Steel? So they're very serious about their timelines.
They really like their timelines in these movies. Superman was 33 in Man of Steel.
Oh, yeah,
Honestly, the one big thing I took away from that murder scene, which is a scene I actually very much enjoy, like the first 2 minutes of this movie are great, but Excalibur, how confused must the Waynes have been right before their shot going, the last thing we saw was Excalibur, which is a good movie. I'm not going to say it's not a good movie, but just walking out of that theater with your young child and everyone, and all three of them must have been going, why was that vaguely out of sync?
Okay, what I also love about this is that my next note is that Excalibur joins a rather extensive list of things that the Waynes saw before they were murdered, because this has changed.
I always assumed it was Zorro. It's not just Zorro?
No, it's not just Zorro. In the comic books, traditionally, yes, it is the mark of Zorro, specifically the Tyrone Power movie.
Yeah.
They really need to up it to the mask of Zorro. That'd be awesome.
Now, Tim Burton's film has him seeing a fictional film called Footlight Frenzy. But Batman Begins has him seeing a play called Mephistopheles.
It was Faust, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a Faustian play. It was literally called Mephistopheles, but it was based on Faust.
Oh, I learned something.
Well, Mephistopheles. There we go. I can only say it once 100 times. Isn't that the demon that essentially takes Faust's soul in Faust?
Yeah. Oh yeah. In Batman Begins, it's actually meant to be an allegory for Ra's al Ghul corrupting Bruce Wayne early on in the film. It's actually very cleverly done.
For some reason, I always thought that opera was Der Fledermaus.
No, that was a misconception. Weirdly,
Okay.
I thought that's what it was too, but I looked into it and no, that's.
I like how smart we sound talking about Batman right now.
Oh, believe me, we're not gonna. It's not gonna end there.
We'll make a dick joke in a minute.
Okay. From there, we see the events of Man of Steel's third act redepicted from adult Bruce Wayne's point of view. There's no real text from the comics to tie to an actual physical Wayne financial building in Metropolis, but interestingly, post-crisis Bruce Wayne does own 2 buildings in Metropolis that are particular to the Superman mythology. And this one's going to be really weird after seeing the movie. Superman owns Clark and Lois Lane's apartment building. He gave
On purpose?
Yes, on purpose. He gave it to them as a wedding present.
Do you think Bruce has hidden cameras?
Yes.
Yes.
Like, do you think Bruce was just watching Clark just plow Lois in that bathtub?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, and this is particularly insane, he owns the Daily Planet, which was bought by Bruce from Perry White in a storyline set years after Lex Luthor bought the paper during the Death of Superman storyline and attempted to shut it down. Lex subsequently relinquished control after Lois Lane convinced him to give it to Perry in exchange for Lois killing one article of Lex's choosing.
How petty is Lex Luthor, honestly?
But that's insane. Lex Luthor owns the company. He could have killed any article.
Ended him. He could fire Lois at like any minute.
You got tired of Perry coming in and assigning people shit like, you do sports, you crossword puzzles. That's fun. Can you do a Sudoku?
Well, here's the thing. Well, like, at this point in continuity, it was the 1990s, so this was clone Lex. Like, his mind was deteriorating. He wasn't thinking logically, like...
Okay, we can forgive him.
He was eating his own poop.
Yeah, yeah.
Just smearing it all over his forehead. I have hair now.
Wilson!
Okay, going from that, there's no real canonical ties to the Wayne financial employees. Wallace Keefe, as played by Scoot McNairy, who everyone thought was Jimmy Olsen, and
Scoot. If only. At least he would have made it longer into the movie.
Yeah, but he also would have lost his legs and then got blown up. At least this
fair,
Jimmy just got shot in the head.
To be fair, it's Jimmy, and Jimmy without legs is kind of funny.
It is.
I lost. Superman took my legs, Lois.
I made him a robe and everything.
Now he's gonna make me marry a gorilla.
This is what war looks like.
All right. That's the kind of dickish Superman I want. The one that would make Jimmy marry a gorilla. I don't want the dickish no hope Superman. I just want flat out dick Superman.
Emperor Superman lives.
Now we get into possibly my favorite part of this entire thing, where I went on this binge of research for about a week. Gentlemen, I want to tell you about a little character named Anatoly Knyazev, portrayed in the movie by Colin Mulvey as a Russian mercenary under the employ of Lex Luthor, who is the civilian name of comic book supervillain KGBeast.
Oh my god, I didn't make the connection.
Created by Jim Starlin and Jim Aparo in 1988's Batman number 417.
They wasted KGBeast that way? Oh.
I am about to explain who KGBeast is and his entire relevant history, because you can sum it up in one paragraph, as I can.
You were able to stretch it out to a paragraph.
It's amazing. It's really amazing. Okay. KGBeast's comic book abilities include cybernetically enhanced strength, as well Get ready for this.
Drum roll.
As well as a prosthetic gun in place of his left hand. His appearances were sparse throughout the 80s and 90s, with a notable controversial storyline and one of his earliest appearances in which Batman appeared to kill the character off by burying him alive, seemingly breaking the character's rule of no killing in the comics. The given reason for this in Starlin's story came from a CIA agent who reminded Batman that if KGBeast were to be turned in alive, he would be immediately handed over to the Soviets and likely escape justice. While this was even highlighted in an article by Crack.com as, I think the top 5 times Batman murdered or something, the common misconception was that this was KGBeast's last appearance. Not so. The murder was not canonized because in a later story, Batman Year 3, published a year later, Batman immediately contacted the police to pick up the unconscious villain. So there was a retcon to save the life of KGBeast.
Because he was that goddamn important. Can I say how confused the police must have been? Just arriving and just Batman handing them shovels.
Why'd you bury him?
Why?
Better than that, when they dig KGBeast up, how do the handcuffs work? They just put it on.
Thank God.
You saved me from the horrible Batman.
Do the handcuffs just go on the gun?
Yes. Well,
That doesn't seem very secure.
KGBeast is fucking huge, so.
Okay. Now, you know how I said I can only do one paragraph of this character's appearances? Well, you're about to see why. This character had a couple of different appearances, but his most notable appearances came firstly in a 2006 storyline 1 year later, where he was thrown off of a rooftop by Two-Face.
How strong is Two-Face?
Surprisingly.
Well, Two-Face at the time was reformed Harvey Dent, who was standing in as a vigilante in Gotham during Batman's absence. So he had got himself ripped and been on a training regimen and all that. So he was just dropping people.
I'm just imagining Dent the size of Bane, and it's hilarious.
I'm One-Face now.
He's got a giant coin just to show off how strong he is. It's 3 feet long.
Flip it. Oh no, I won't balance. Oh, and then he falls to his death, and then Batman comes in. No!
That giant penny from the Batcave is actually from this era.
And then Batman comes in, just throws coins on Dent's corpse.
Okay, now, even though KGBeast died from his injuries due to this would not be his very last appearance. In the storyline Blackest Night, which reanimated numerous prominent DC characters as undead zombies, a Black Lantern KGBeast, I swear to all that is holy, used his ring to create a construct of his prosthetic gun arm to battle Dick Grayson's Batman and Damian Wayne's Robin.
Comic books are so stupid.
I've been waiting a week to discuss this. A zombie KGBeast used a Black Lantern ring to create his own prosthetic gun hand.
This is
All the power in the universe to create anything you can imagine. And he goes with, well, I used to have an arm there. Yeah.
Zombie at the same time. This is why Blockbuster is more impressive than you, KGBeast.
And yet somehow the movie version is even less impressive.
Yeah.
I have to say, the lack of gun for hand is a bit of a step up.
I don't know. I would have lost my shit if he just showed up with a gun hand or something.
No explanation at all.
Oh, yeah. I think that's actually a step down, now that I think about it.
You do have me there.
Okay. Senator Finch, portrayed by Holly Hunter in the film, was likely a given surname inspired by comic book artist David Finch. Finch had been working under contract for DC since 2010, notably on Forever Evil, in the New 52, which features actually a number of characters from the film, including Lex Luthor, and the evil Earth 3 counterparts to Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and The Flash, which might as well be the characters in this.
Hey, leave Wonder Woman alone.
Okay. Hunter's character bears no real known resemblance to another character from the DC universe, though it should be noted her first appearance in the movie does include a brief shot of Mercy Graves, portrayed in the film by Tao Okamoto. Mercy is only briefly hinted at for one story and not likely canonical of this version to be an Amazon. She is famously Lex Luthor's bodyguard and chauffeur, and it was invented by Superman the Animated Series, where she was voiced for a number of years by Lisa Edelstein. That is about all you need to know about Mercy, is that she is awesome, and the film wasted her.
And the film blew her up.
At least if she was an Amazon in the movie universe, she survived that explosion.
I think Superman probably noticed there was like someone not dead.
It's this Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He had to go trip balls on a mountain.
Now let me tell you a story about dead horses, son.
Now,
Why, Dad?
The story's going to sound really good, but about 2 hours after seeing this movie, you're going to wonder what the fuck the point of it was.
Don't be a hero. You'll murder someone's horses.
Seemingly.
Now, speaking of retarded comic book stuff, I'm about to get into something that is very, very angering to us as fans of this character. So I'm just going to get it out of the way. First appearance of Batman in the movie features him branding a criminal with a bat insignia. Now, while that element is wildly inconsistent with the Batman of the comics, at least as far as the post-crisis Batman is concerned, and most versions of Batman are concerned, and most sane versions of Batman are concerned.
Except Clooney.
DKR Batman would burn a guy. He would brand a dude.
Clooney specifically, though, I feel like has that dark side.
Yeah, Clooney would. Could you imagine Clooney going through a Dark Knight Returns story? Fucking hilarious.
I would watch that.
I would have loved to see him in this film just doing all these horrific things.
Could they,
it's like, wow.
Could they bring back Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face, even though that wasn't a Clooney villain?
Yes.
Just Tommy Lee Jones. I mean, they don't even have to put any old makeup on him. It'd be fantastic.
You know, I just realized something. Between Batman's age and how violent he is, there's nothing saying this is not in continuity with the Burton films.
Did they ever mention Metropolis in the,
They did in Batman Forever, and that's in continuity.
Okay.
They did.
Did they show it being next door?
They didn't say it wasn't.
That's true.
Damn straight. I like this. I like this version.
Okay, so at some point, Chris O'Donnell died horrifically.
Beaten to death by the Joker. Oh, wait, now it's confusing because the Joker's still alive.
No. It's an imposter Joker. Let's say that. It's
J-Face. His name's
yes.
J-Face.
J-Face,
yes.
Okay.
Jared Leto is playing the son of Jack Nicholson.
Yes. And son of Jack Nicholson and Alicia.
Exactly. Okay.
Broke the whole fucking thing wide open.
Back to my original point, though. The whole bat branding thing. While he doesn't really do this kind of thing in the comic books, he does actually often inflict permanent injuries on criminals. And specifically, in a storyline for Peter Tomasi's Batman and Robin, part of the New 52, a group of Batman villains invented for the story is comprised of scarred individuals led by a new villain called Terminus, who is forced to extend his own life with the help of a technological harness after complications from surgery due to injuries inflicted by Batman. He leads the character's Bathead, who has a non-fatal but brain-damaging batarang jutting out from his skull. Bootface, who has a permanently indented boot print in his skin from the force of a kick from Batman. Scallop, who outfits herself with embedded spikes throughout her body after Batman pierced her arm with 6 of his gauntlet spikes.
Jesus, Batman.
And Smush, the result of 3 men horrifyingly grafted together after the 3 attempted to steal the Batmobile and tampered with its countermeasure system, leading to an explosion.
What the fuck does the Batmobile do? Also, why are there just a bunch of Tick villains that are suddenly in Batman comics?
It was a weird storyline, dude. It was a really weird storyline. But yeah, that was just to kind of show that while the bat branding itself is insane, Batman is not above causing just irreparable
Smushing 3 people, 3 human beings together.
Not anymore.
Like a Cenobite.
You know the greatest indignity, though? He was defeated by Damian. That character was defeated by Damian. Not even Batman and Damian, just Damian.
God. I feel so bad for Smush. I like how we're referring to him as one person.
I mean, he has 3 heads, but let's face it.
Because that's how... Also, I just want to go back to the technological harness thing for a second. I love comic book science so much where you can just say things like technological harness, and that's acceptable.
Well, he's called Terminus. I mean, there's not a lot of logic being applied to this character.
He is the end of the line.
Interestingly, the Bat branding itself is likely inspired by a draft of the script to a proposed live-action adaptation of Batman Year One in development in the year 2001, which was going to be directed by Darren Aronofsky as a hard R crime thriller with a script co-written by Frank Miller. In the script, a young Bruce Wayne uses his father's ancestral ring to embed a mark into criminals resembling the shape of a bat, inspiring the disguise he'd take on over as the course of the film.
I don't know how the cops keep finding me.
The fact it says Wayne underneath it doesn't really help.
Now, all of that said, at no point, however, is it referenced as a potential prison death sentence. So, after the initial scene of Batman's appearance, we see the newly redesigned Batcave, bearing similar elements to the more technologically advanced Bat Bunker used by Dick Grayson's Batman in 2009. Alfred Pennyworth is introduced, played by Jeremy Irons, as tinkering with the cowl, establishing his role in upkeeping Batman's equipment. This has only been hinted at in canon, and is really only generally seen as kind of a thing that Alfred doesn't do. I mean, he's kind of a surgeon. He's a military combat surgeon, but
And sassy.
yeah. This is more like the Earth 1 version, who takes more of a proactive role, and honestly, I love the Earth 1 version.
I really love Alfred in this movie.
Yeah. Alfred
Needs to
is...
be more of them.
Alfred is...
If they could have just taken Batman and Alfred and just stuck him in a different movie with a good script, I would have been very happy.
Oh yeah.
And not had Batman kill people. Like,
That'd be nice.
Less evil Batman would have been good.
Yeah. Because
Well, they kind of gave Batman an arc in this movie where he's realizing maybe burning people isn't a great idea.
That's clear. I mean, I will give the movie a little bit of credit for that kind of being the point of Batman's actions, is he realizes he went fucking crazy and he needs to pull back and be traditional Batman again.
Also, that was one thing I was excited for at first in the movie, because I thought they were just going to have a Bruce Wayne that was fucking insane and having visions all the time. Like, he was just going to be imagining shit, like he thought the bats flew him out of the cave, and he thought that was real. I wanted a Batman that would just believe insane things, and other people would just...
Crazy Steve.
Yeah, pretty much.
To be fair, I don't think there was an actual Flash in that room. I think Bruce just had a little bit of a episode.
He was clearly... I mean, I would like to see what's exactly put in the director's cut, because there's a lot of stuff with Alfred that I feel like is more in there, as far as giving advice to Bruce being crazy, and there's a lot of hints that Bruce has become a bit of an alcoholic.
Oh, he flat out, like, drinks, like, a whole bottle of wine after waking up, and, like, he beds a woman that we don't even see. He actually kind of acts half drunk in the next scene, which I don't think was unintentional. I think, like, Affleck was actually, like, putting on kind of a he's hammered.
Yeah.
kind of...
There's a lot of, I think, unfinished ideas throughout the movie.
Why did you say that name?
Why?
Have you been drinking? No. Why did you say Martha?
Why did you say Tommy? I mean Martha. I don't know a Tommy. Do I know a Tommy? Is he a Robin? I don't know a Tommy.
Two Tommies.
Jason!
Jay. He just falls asleep on top of Superman.
He's still wearing that big clunky armor suit. I should say, for all the faults and everything with this version of Batman, Affleck does an amazing job. Like, I'm not gonna discredit that dude for anything. That dude proved beyond a shadow of the doubt that he was perfectly capable of playing a great version of Batman. Like, especially Bruce. Like,
I think he definitely can. I do think throughout the movie you can pinpoint an exact moment where Affleck realizes what the movie is, and you can watch his soul leave his body. I think it's the exact moment where the Flash explodes into light. He shrugs and goes back to work. If you watch that, you can see a ghostly visage of Ben Affleck. This is why he cheated on his wife. Leave his body and float up to heaven. And that's the Affleck that exists now.
I have Oscars.
I just want to say, way to make it real.
I'm having fun.
But, okay, Bruce's line of, "We're criminals, Alfred. We've always been criminals," is the first of many direct lines lifted from The Dark Knight Returns. even though that particular line was established as first being said by Batman to Green Lantern in the infamous Yellow Paint issue of Miller's much later book, All-Star Batman and Robin, the Boy Wonder.
I can 100% fucking see Batfleck painting himself goddamn yellow.
In the next Justice League film?
I want to see that be the introduction of this movie universe's Hal Jordan so badly. Like, he just floats down to a warehouse, opens it up, and Ben Affleck is standing there painted entirely yellow.
Care for some lemonade? This universe's Dick Grayson's there eating a fucking rat. Jeremy Irons is just shirtless for no particular reason.
And beating up a punching bag.
My dark angel.
God, for more on this, listen to Pulp Nightmare Batman No Part 1 through 3. Cody?
Cross promotion! Ting!
Alright.
Oh, not tings, no tings.
Listen, we already went the gun for hands, so we were already off our fucking rails.
Ting, 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 ting.
Kryptonite is introduced earlier in the film, but its exact elements are explained in the scene following the introduction of Lex Luthor. Kryptonite is said to be a souvenir of General Zod's world engine, designed to terraform Earth's planetary makeup into that of Krypton. In the comics, it emits a low-level radiation that is virtually harmless to humans under short periods of contact, but greatly effectual to Superman and other Kryptonians. Kryptonite was actually introduced originally, and this was actually fascinating to me, in an unpublished 1940 story called The K-Metal from Krypton, written by Superman co-creator Jerry Siegel, though it went unnamed for 3 years. This was never published, and was actually introduced in a later storyline by another writer. Nevertheless, it was introduced as a mineral originating from the planet Krypton that drained Superman of all his strength, while giving human beings superhuman powers.
That's new.
I always thought Kryptonite was introduced on the radio show.
So did I.
Yeah, that was apparently taken from an unpublished story by Jerry Siegel.
Wow.
Huh. Weird. Yeah, the rumor I always heard was that they introduced on the radio show, so the guy who was doing Superman could take a few episodes off because then they just had to have someone like go in and groan.
Yeah, it wasn't because he got sick or something too.
I heard he wanted
That was a
vacation, but I don't know how real any of that is.
I think that was a large part of the story, but the thing is that this version of Kryptonite was so different from the regular version because it gave other people superpowers. Like, that was never in the Kryptonite that we know from the movies and the comics and all that.
Just took Lex's hand and his balls.
It was a weird story. It was called, again, the K-Metal from Krypton. Look this up. But the metahuman thesis, which is brought up in the introductory scene for Lex, is a reference to the term metahuman from the comics, used to describe the appearance of superhumans in the DC universe, not of alien origin. Metahuman, this is amazing, was actually coined in 1986 by Game of Thrones author George R.R. Martin.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow, I did not know that.
He invented it for a superhero-themed RPG called Superworld, before expanding its use in a series of novels called Wildcards.
I think he's still writing those, isn't he?
I actually believe he is, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's still writing those on occasion, and
that's what he
might
writes.
have a deal with someone to make that into a show, but they haven't made a ton of progress that I'm aware of.
It was actually first used in DC continuity by the extraterrestrial race known as the Dominators in a miniseries called Invasion.
There's a lot of leather.
There is a lot of strap-ons going on.
Okay, just to give you an idea of what this was about. It was a crossover between the Omega Men, Justice League International, and the Legion of Superheroes. And it was written by Bill Mantlo and Keith Giffen.
Hey, Mantlo.
Its more popular use, it should be said, is in the CW series The Flash, where it's coined by Dr. Harrison Wells to explain victims of a particle accelerator explosion, which makes up a large portion of the villains. But the term has also been used frequently in Smallville, Young Justice, the Shaq Shock animated series, and the live-action Birds of Prey. 'Cause, alright then. Now, in the film, we see Bruce Wayne, as said, in a bed with an unidentified woman and drinking wine. In the comics, Batman has a history of either paying off women to keep his cover as a playboy philanthropist intact, or hiring them to act as his live-in girlfriends to use as an alibi, as established in 2 scenes from year 1. He's also established as teetotal, replacing alcoholic beverages with ginger ale in order to prevent his senses from being influenced by intoxication. But The Dark Knight Returns establishes Bruce as a heavily implied problem drinker to help him forget his troubles following his retirement as Batman, even prompting the line, as said by Alfred in the film, of hoping that the next generation of Waynes do not inherit an empty wine cellar if there is to be a next generation of Waynes. So, kinda got it right?
That wasn't a woman. That wasn't a young woman in bed. That was a young boy.
Oh.
A very young boy. Felipe, the eighth Robin.
I just keep attracting him.
See, I like where your head is at, because I was going to go for like a John Paul Valley joke, and we would have gone like down a whole wormhole there. And
He is just Jean Paul Valley in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's Asbats.
His costume is better.
yeah, I would actually love it if that were the explanation, because he does wear an armor suit. So
That would. And Asbats would fuck up the logo.
The most obese bats you will ever see as a logo.
oh God, the Order of Saint Domingue commands me. But interestingly, Dawn of Justice portrays Bruce Wayne's dual identity as Batman as more of an enabler of his dark tendencies, with the film painting the first proper glimpse of the Batsuit as something Bruce has to wrestle with putting on before going to attend Lex Luthor's banquet. As he exits the Batcave, he passes by a memorial display of the Robin costume, heavily burned and displaying spray paint that reads, "Ha ha ha, joke's on you, Batman." In the comic book storyline, Death in the Family, the Joker famously murdered the second Robin, Jason Todd, with a crowbar before incinerating him in an explosion. While Robin's true identity is never specified and the events surrounding his death are never explained beyond those two clues, it is likely to be Jason, though worryingly unclear, as the status of every male Robin, including Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, Tim Drake, and Damian Wayne, is never once referenced in this universe.
You know how in Return to Oz there's just a giant hall of severed heads that the Queen can go and pick from? I think that's what's going to happen in the Batman universe. Like, Bruce Wayne can stroll down the Batcave, and there's just going to be a long line of glass containers with the charred remains of Robin costumes. And you just pick a different one and put it on display. Like, each week he finds a different one to be sad about.
Can I say one thing about that Robin costume? I love how the Robin in this universe uses a fucking scythe. Because
There's
even
a scythe in there?
look very closely. There's a long blade off of his. If that's what it is, maybe it's a trick of angle, but I'm pretty sure.
Didn't the Phantasm, or technically was it the Reaper in Robin Year 1?
No. Batman Year 2 actually is.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But yeah, the Phantasm was based off the Reaper, so technically you're right on both accounts. Now, to answer your question about the scythe, here's something interesting. That staff is actually the basis for the Kryptonite spear. It's the same prop.
Really?
Yep.
Wow, that would have been interesting to actually have in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, instead I had to look that up in a behind-the-scenes thing, so.
I have a feeling it's not going to be in the 8-hour-long director's cut either.
Nope.
No.
I just want to say, I love how this Batman taught a 10-year-old boy to eviscerate people with a scythe.
It's in character for this Batman.
Crazy Steve.
He
He hates the sun.
Wayne Manor being burned down at one point is never explained in the film, though it is likely to be a reference to the end of Batman Begins, where the manor is burned down by Ra's al Ghul. Christopher Nolan is an executive producer on this film.
Can we just bring up the conversation Zack Snyder had about killing Superman?
Oh, I love how pretty much Superman killing Zod, Nolan was like, no.
Was that it? I thought it was...
No, and also killing Superman. Nolan was like, no.
But Snyder just talked him into it, and by talked him into it, I think eventually Nolan was just like, okay,
I don't
it's
work
not
on
my
this
movie.
I don't care.
Go ahead. It's dumb, but go ahead.
I like how the voice of reason between Christopher Nolan, David Goyer, and Zack Snyder on a Superman movie that treats him realistically was Christopher Nolan, who wanted him to be portrayed more fantastically. That says a lot.
Nolan was right about pretty much all the Superman stuff and was ignored. I don't understand how that happened.
I do want to state for the record, though, I don't really fully believe Superman dying is a 100% decision from anybody involved in making the film, other than the studio executives at Warner Brothers. who have been obsessed with killing him in the hands of Doomsday since the early 90s.
Well, even at the end of the movie, they have like the dirt rising off the coffin and like a faint heartbeat, so it doesn't even seem like he's that dead.
It's we have to get this out of the way. It's like in the last 10 years, Warner Brothers has made 3 Superman movies. In 2 of those, there's been a newspaper that says Superman dead. That is the only thing they're interested in with Superman.
And not only that, but to kick off their DC Animated Universe original movie line, what's the first movie they do? Superman Doomsday.
So I don't really want to put all of the blame on the writers or the filmmakers completely there. I kind of feel like there was a hands of tide situation going on.
I don't know. Zack Snyder seemed like he was very proud of that situation. So I feel like either it was suggested to him and he ran with it, or he always wanted to, and the studio was kind of like, yes, we picked the right man for this job. As they twirled their mustaches, and I believe they're all Monopoly men.
Well, they are. Well, I will say, when Batman was first announced as being in this movie way back when, there was almost an immediate interview by Snyder, who, when asked why Batman was in the movie, flat out said, it's Warner Brothers franchise. Anything they want to do has to be done. Then he later said that it was his idea to put Batman in the movie. So,
who knows?
Who knows? Yeah.
I will say it is interesting. Last year in October when I went to LA, I did the Warner Brothers tour, and they had a giant building dedicated to Batman and his history. Like all the Batman movies, the different costumes, the props, the Batmobiles had their own room from all the films. And there's a very special display for Batman vs. Superman, the new Batmobile. I think they had one Superman costume in the entire Warner Brothers tour. Even though that was a giant movie coming out for them that they were actively pimping, they were just talking about Batman. There was almost nothing said about Superman in that place at all, which didn't strike me at the time because I was excited about the Batmobiles. But looking back, how fucking weird is that? I got a picture of Zod's costume. That was pretty much it for Superman stuff.
Because they love Zod. Well, look at listen, we're really trying to get a Batman movie off the ground. We really want Affleck to, do a Batman movie and direct a Batman. That would be super cool. So you guys gonna make another Superman movie? We'll see, if we get the script right. We'll see. We're not really in the position to do another Superman movie right now. That'd be cool, but, I think that about sums it up.
Yeah. That's what makes me mad, because everyone I talk to right now, if they mention the movie, they all go, yeah, I can't wait to see Batman beat up Superman. No one seems to like Superman in general right now. It just kind of weirds me out, because as a kid, Superman was always the right guy, he's kind of the parent figure, and Batman was a cool, mysterious guy, but you still respected and liked Superman? He was still cool? It seems like as the years go by, people like Superman less and less, and he's reduced to just the cliche Boy Scout, do-gooder, boring guy.
Well, we did a whole episode about this for our other podcast, Graphic Novelism.
Cross-promotion. Does that count? We had a different term for that. I ruined the joke.
No, that counts.
No, I was
promotion.
Yeah, I was actually leading into that, but
that was a great episode.
Oh, thank you. But we were talking about it a lot, and the basic consensus that we came up with is that Superman has a lot of custodians, and their worst custodian, their most drunk custodian of all time is Warner Brothers Studios, because the portrait of Superman has been largely painted by a company that seemingly has no interest in owning this character. It's weird.
And there's a weird cultural thing that's been going on for a while. Batman's acceptable to people because, he's dark, he's edgy, and he's tortured, so God, he's just so tortured by being such a good person. People don't seem to enjoy the fact that Superman's just a good guy.
Oh no, they feel like people have to be flawed in order to be good.
Which is just a societal problem of they can't take that really selfless dude just trying to do good, but they'll take Batman just because he looks cool. So people are just weird and stupid.
To get to a positive about this movie.
Right, we are trying to keep this under 3 hours.
The first appearance of Diana Prince in the movie, the civilian identity of Wonder Woman, sees her reacting dismissively at Lex telling a story about Prometheus and Zeus. Not only has Wonder Woman personally interacted with these deities in the past, but Zeus in particular was retconned into being Diana's biological father in the New 52 Comics relaunch of 2011.
Let me guess, he's an asshole there too?
Yeah, pretty much. Lex also references the terms gods and mortals, the name of the story that retold Wonder Woman's origin in the 1987 retelling following Crisis on Infinite Earths. So that's 2 references. And also, I just want to say, first introduction of Wonder Woman, reacting dismissively, because even she realizes she deserves better than this movie.
Well, Wonder Woman's entire arc in this movie is this movie's bullshit and she needs to take care of it.
Pretty much. I mean, if she hadn't intervened, like, Batman would be dead, Superman would be dead, the entire world would be annihilated. Diana, like, saved the entire universe.
And it's funny because she's only in Metropolis to, I don't know, steal a flash drive with information on her, which she doesn't actually take care of.
Listen, the important thing is Wonder Woman.
Exactly.
All right, yeah.
Also,
I mean, that was like, for a brief second, my heart started beating again when she smiled fighting Doomsday, like, oh, this is fun. And then immediately the movie closed back down and made my eyes just kind of shut, and I went into a coma.
Thank God for Wonder Woman.
Gal Gadot did an amazing job. I just have to say, like, there's a lot of skepticism regarding her going into this movie because she hasn't had a lot of really great acting experience. Like, she was in the Fast and the Furious films. She was in a couple of other things here and there that are kind of low key, but boy, am I excited for her solo film. Like, if nothing else, like, I just want to see an entire movie of her just doing things.
Same.
Like, one of the most riveting scenes in this movie was just a scene of her watching footage on a flash drive and reacting. Like, that scene was well crafted for all of the weirdness of that scene.
Again, I can't wait for the DVD to come out so people can rip that and just change her reaction to probably watching clips from Batman vs. Superman.
Time out. We're at like an hour 15.
Do we want to maybe break this into 2 parts?
We could.
We just have to find a convenient point to be like, and now we stop. But there'll be more. Hopefully that was recorded, and you can just slap that wherever you want. That's pro bono.
I mean, I hope it was recorded too, because we're recording it.
And like that, he's gone.
This is Box Office Pulp Guy, and this has been a Pulp Podcast production. Now please, 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 put a gun in my mouth and pull the trigger and say goodnight.
And now, on with the show.
As we all know, Superman arrived on Earth in a space rocket long ago, when he was Super Baby. The Man of Steel has always thought he was the sole survivor of the tragic catastrophe that destroyed his home world, Krypton. But fate has many strange twists, for this is not an ordinary tale of Superman, but the launching of a new member of our super family. So, without further ado, we take pride in introducing...
Great guns! I seem to see a youngster, flying, dressed in a super costume. It must be an illusion.
Look again, Superman. It's me, Supergirl, and I'm real. The Supergirl Power Hour, a monthly look at the Maid of Might.
There are a lot of issues that plague the
Greetings and salutations, kiddos. It's me, your old goblin in crime, Roderick Kingsley, here with a special message for you, my adoring public. You may have noticed lately in my many appearances that I've had a bit of a spring in my pointy-booted step. No, boys and girls, the secret to my success is no wonder drug or miracle diet, but an elixir of the spirit. And, like a Halloween-themed Jehovah's Witness, I'm here to spread the good news like a bombardment of pumpkin bombs. The good news of graphic novelism. But, Uncle Hobgoblin, you ask, what is a graphic novelism? Don't interrupt me, you little stat! But yes, the tenets of graphic novelism are quite simple. A love for the comic book form in all of its forms. A rejection of the complacency that keeps it from reaching further heights. And, most importantly, a refusal to fall into the dark pool of negativity that has strangled the life out of this culture for too long. Since becoming a devout graphic novelist, I've rebuilt my goblin game from the ground up, soaring high above my fears and insecurities, as though they were the skyline of New York City. And all you have to do to walk this path is look deep within yourself and send your credit card number care of Ronnie the OG Hobby at gobmail.com. Or if you want to be a total Norman about it, just listen to the Graphic Novelism Podcast, where Alex Cook, James Lewis, and Mike Napier preach their love for the medium and warn against those that may do it harm. Remember, ladies and gents, if you want to be the hobgoblin of whatever it is that you do, listen to Graphic Novelism. Subscribe to it on iTunes and the Stitcher. Leave a rating and a comment. Give Hobgoblin all of your money. And for God's sake, kill Spider-Man!
Another episode.
That was just a little taste of graphic novelism.